Hello YouTube, it's Snowflarky Zemos, and I'm here today to talk about my Lord of the Red Blue Eyes White Dragon deck profile. Now Lord of the Red is a sick Joey Ace monster that was shown in the Fang of Critias arc in the anime, and then of course we were able to get it in the TCG and Dragons of Legend 2. Really fun ritual boss monster deck, but always been sort of an anomaly for the fact that despite the fact that it's a Joey card and modeled after Red Eyes, it is an 8-star monster, which made it very hard to play in a Red Eyes deck, but gives it easy space to fit into a Blue Eyes deck for a, kind of fun playground environment. So I, of course, went ahead and did that. It's a very fun deck. Lord of the Red is a cool boss monster, and Blue Eyes in general has a lot of synergies for lots of level 8 strategies and lots of fun things you can do with a basic Blue Eyes core that I've always enjoyed. So this is, just one of many. And with that said, let's start looking at the deck. Starting off with our monsters, I am playing 2 copies of Lord of the Red. This is the namesake of the deck, an 8-star dragon ritual monster. Has to be ritual summoned by the ritual spell Red Eyes Transmigration, and comes with a pretty powerful effect that says once per turn during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated, you can destroy one monster on the field. And then once per turn during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated, you can destroy a spell and a trap card on the field. Now this is pretty powerful because it basically means once per turn during either player's turn, you get to destroy a monster and a spell, which is a lot of destruction just on one card. Pretty nice. Can definitely do a lot of damage to your opponent if they don't play around it properly. If they're activating effects and leaving things on the field before Lord of the Red is dealt with, they're certainly going to pay for it. So always a pretty fun effect to use. Lots of fun. You can even trigger it yourself with your own effects. It's pretty sweet. And given that it's 8 stars, it slots well into this Blue Eyes deck that I use to support it, because any card can be tribute for Lord of the Red. Next up with our monsters, we are playing 3 copies of the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Blue Eyes White Dragon decks need the Blue Eyes White Dragon. It's a vanilla 8-star monster with 3000 attack, Kaiba's iconic ace. We can make lots of use of the vanilla aspect of this card, which you'll see in other parts of the deck profile. And of course, we need Blue Eyes to, be going into our extra deck as possible ritual fodder for Lord of the Red. It's a pretty easy to summon card with all the support in this deck, so very happy to be playing 3 Blue Eyes. It does what it needs to do. Next up for our monsters, I am playing 3 copies of Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon. Very powerful card for a Blue Eyes deck. You essentially special summon it from your hand by revealing a Blue Eyes normal monster in your hand. So if you got Blue Eyes White Dragon in your hand, you reveal Blue Eyes White Dragon, and then you can summon Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon for free. It's got the same stats as Blue Eyes, 3000 attack, 2500 defense, 8 stars. But it comes with a nice little bonus effect that you can destroy a monster on the field once per turn instead of attacking. So you can destroy a monster and then use this as synchro fodder, maybe even ritual fodder for Lord of the Red. That's pretty cool. And of course, when it's on the field and in the graveyard, its name just becomes Blue Eyes White Dragon. Pretty important for going into Blue Eyes fusions if that's something you want to do and stuff like that. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Dragon Spirit of White. Now, this card is always treated as a Blue Eyes card. It's an 8-star monster with 2500 attack. And then, of course, when this card is normal or special summon, you can target a spell or trap card on the field that your opponent controls and banish it. So we like having access to this spell and trap removal. Banish removal, too, is pretty nice. Another 8-star for 8-star synergies in the deck. And a Blue Eyes monster to be able to go into key Blue Eyes extra deck pieces. It also comes with another effect that if your opponent controls a monster, you contribute this card to special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon from your hand. Yeah, you could definitely use that to cycle in a battle phase and get some more damage in, if you attack with Dragon Spirit of White first and then sack it off for Blue Eyes before the battle phase is done before all the monsters are off your opponent's field. Get some extra damage in that way. Also get a Blue Eyes on the field because sometimes we want to be ending our turn with a Blue Eyes on the field. A lot of people have only run one copy of this card when they play it. I find its effect pretty useful, and I like to have access to it, and I need a couple extra 8 stars for Lord of the Red, so 2 is fine by me. Next, I am playing one copy of White Stone of the Ancients. It's the 1-star Dragon Tuner that when this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add Blue Eyes White Dragon from your deck to your hand. You know, for alternatives, oftentimes we need to make sure we always have a Blue Eyes in the hand. So we can play Whitestone of Legend here to make sure that happens. Grab it from the deck. Tuner capabilities allow us to go into our extra deck. Nothing more to be said on that. Next, I am playing 3 copies of the White Stone of Ancients, another 1-star Dragon Tuner for the Blue Eyes deck. And of course, the main benefit of this is that once per turn during the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can special summon a Blue Eyes monster from your deck. Gets more bodies on the field, allows us to go into our Synchro extra deck. So pretty useful card. Oftentimes, if you want to get rid of a spell or trap, you're going to want to go into Dragon Spirit of White. If you want the big Blue Eyes body on there for a future turn, or some of our normal synergy cards in here, you'll go for a Blue Eyes White Dragon. And then, of course, if this card is in your graveyard, you can then target a Blue Eyes monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand by banishing this card. So, gives you a way to recycle your Blue Eyes alternatives, maybe get a Blue Eyes White Dragon to your hand if you got rid of it and need one in your hand for an alternative. Pretty good card. Very glad to have it. And then next, I am just playing one copy of Sage with Eyes of Blue. Pretty good card. I've only ever had one copy of this card, and while, it's nice because this is the searcher for your tuners, because when it's normal summon, you can add a level 1 light tuner from your deck to your hand. While that's nice, I don't find myself needing it too often, so I've never went out to pick up more copies of this card. And in this kind of even more for fun variant of Blue Eyes, deck space can be a little tight fitting the ritual stuff in there. But, sometimes you need that, you want to get to that Dragon Tuner. Well, now you can. And, of course, this card being a tuner itself means you can go into your Synchros. Next up, I'm playing one copy of a Morphage Goliath. This is a powerful level 8 dragon that is mainly played for this powerful effect it has that says neither player can special summon monsters from their extra deck except Morphage monsters. So, 8 stars gives the natural synergy with Blue Eyes cards. It's trade-in fodder, it's ritual fodder. There's ways to load this in the graveyard. And of course, if you bring it back from the graveyard, you can often play this as kind of just like an auto win con. If a deck's not ready to out a Morphage Goliath and then they can't go into their extra deck, well, sometimes that just wins you the game. So that's definitely worth running a copy. And when you're playing a deck that's not so hot like Blue Eyes kind of is at the moment, having these kind of cheesy win cons available is usually the thing to go with from my experience. Easy win by just summoning Goliath sometimes, and that makes it worth running a copy. And last up for our monsters, I am playing a copy of Arcbrave Dragon. This card is mostly played because of its effect that during the standby phase after this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a dragon type monster other than Arcbrave Dragon from your graveyard, which is pretty cool. Definitely use that to set up a disruption on your opponent's turn by either summoning a Dragon Spirit of White, or you just get another body on the board for free, which is pretty sweet. And of course, if you decide to special summon this card from your graveyard, you can banish all your opponent's face-up spell and trap cards and then gain 200 for each. That's pretty useful. There's definitely ways to pull it out. So while it's mostly used for that first effect, definitely keep that second effect in mind. And that is it for our monster lineup. Next, let's take a look at the spells I'm playing in this deck. Starting off with 2 copies of Red Eyes Transmigration. This is simply the ritual spell for Lord of the Red. You know, it mentions Lord of the Red in the card text, which is important for our pre-preparation of rights. And also, you know, you got to tribute 8 stars for the Lord of the Red. So once you have this card and Lord of the Red in your hand, and an 8-star monster to tribute, either in your hand or field, you can get Lord of the Red out. So a ritual spell, pretty self-explanatory. And then, of course, because Red Eye's Transmigration has Lord of the Red's name specifically, we can play Pre-Preparation of Rites, which allows us to add a ritual spell card from the deck to our hand, and we can add a monster whose name is specifically listed on that card from our deck to our hand. So this one card will get us both the Lord of the Red and the Red Eye's Transmigration, and, you know, that's a good enough, you know, +1 card value. Cards we definitely need, get them out of the deck. Very good to have, so we definitely want to see this card. Play it at 3. Next up, I am playing 3 copies of Melody of the Awakening Dragon. Key Blue Eyes card here. Discard a card to add up to 2 Dragon-type monsters with 3,000 or more attack and 2,500 or less defense from your deck to your hand. So important that you can't grab Lord of the Red or Dragon Spirit of White with that, but you can grab Blue Eyes and you can grab Alternative. If you don't have a Blue Eyes White Dragon in your hand, you'll want to grab a Blue Eyes and an Alternative. If you already have a Blue Eyes White Dragon in your hand, well, you can consider just stacking up on 2 Blue Eyes Alternatives, which is, you know, very nice, gets things moving, gets the deck moving along. The discard can be very useful too, you know, if you're discarding the right thing, like one of your tuners, or your Amorphage Goliath to set it up, even Arcbrave Dragon. So definitely keep that in mind. The discard can be, you know, not just a cost, it can be quite a benefit. Next, with all these 8 stars, I am playing 3 copies of Trade-In. Just more ways to keep the deck moving, get our Blue Eyes monsters in the graveyard, get more cards in our hand, you know, keeping it moving. It's pretty nice, you know, send Goliath, send a spare Blue Eyes, send a dead dragon in white to your hand, draw 2 cards, sounds like a good deal. And I'm playing 1 copy of Cards of Consonance. It's the same thing as Trade-In, except for our 1-star dragon tuners. You know, Whitestone of Legend or Whitestone of Agents can be discarded to draw 2 cards, and then of course those cards give you added benefit for being discard. So pretty nice. Sometimes considered playing this at 2, but I usually only resolve 1. It's up to you though. You can try it out. Next, one of the powerful revival tools in this, we have 3 copies of Return of the Dragon Lords. So this allows us to target a level 7 or 8 dragon type monster in the graveyard and special summon it. Then it has a bonus effect that while this card is in the graveyard, if dragon type monster or monsters I control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, I can banish this card from the graveyard instead. So this card can bring back any of the Blue Eyes cards. It can bring back a properly summoned Lord of Red. We could use it to fetch a Morphage Goliath. We can use it to fetch Arcbrave Dragon, whichever one you need at a given time. And of course, this card gives them added protection, which is a nice bonus to have. So, you know, powerful card, reviving things from the graveyard, and we're certainly going to be loading it up. So glad to have it, glad to see it. Next, I am playing 2 copies of Silver's Cry. This is a quick play spell that allows us to target a dragon type normal monster in your graveyard and special summon that target. And then of course you can only activate 1 Silver's Cry per turn. So this card can get us back either the Blue Eyes White Dragon or the Dragon Spirit of the White, which counts as a normal monster in the graveyard. So whichever one you need, get it out. You know, having more, you know, summoning a quick body during the battle phase helps push for an OTK. Summoning Dragon Spirit of White gets rid of a problematic spell or trap card. All fine things that we want to see. Next, I'm playing 1 copy of Dragon Shrine. This card allows us to send a dragon-type monster from the deck to the graveyard, and then if the monster you send to the graveyard is a normal monster, then you can send 1 more dragon-type monster from your deck to the graveyard. So you can only activate 1 Dragon Shrine per turn. So pretty powerful effect. Lets you get your graveyard set up. You know, you can dump Blue Eyes or Dragon Spirit of White first, whichever one you want in the graveyard out the gate. And then, of course, you can dump something else based on afterward. Maybe you want to dump Goliath because you have a revival in hand to get Goliath on the field, knock out your opponent. Usually, the one I want to send the most second is Arcbrave Dragon, so I can get its effect to summon during the next standby phase. And of course, you can even send, a White Stone of Ancient, something if you want to get your deck moving more. Whichever one you need, you can send it. So Dragon Shrine, good setup card. Almost worth running it too, just because even though you only need to resolve one, you definitely want to see it. But I'm playing one. I've messed around with the ratio of this a few times, so sometimes I go for that. But for now, I'm just playing the one. Next up, for our spells, I am playing one copy of Monster Reborn. Doesn't, a less specific revival spell, but it allows me to access my opponent's graveyard. It allows me to grab anything I want, and that makes it pretty worth. So, revive your properly summoned Lord of the Reds, your Amorphage Goliaths to lock out and win the game. Whichever you need, you can get it back with Monster Reborn. And then next, this is kind of a fun thing. I've been playing around with Blue Eyes decks in general, but I managed to give it a slot in here. I am playing two copies of Flawless Perfection of the Tenyi and one Terraforming to search this field spell. Now, Flawless Perfection of the Tenyi is a pretty cool field spell that says all non-effect monsters that I control are unaffected by my opponent's monster effects. So that means any left standing Blue Eyes White Dragons, the original, that are on the field are not going to be affected by monster effects, giving them a little bit of protection, making them a bit harder to deal with, which is pretty nice. And then, of course, also, once per turn, if my opponent special summons an effect monster while I control a non-effect monster, like a Blue Eyes White Dragon, then I get to draw two cards. So drawing two cards is pretty sick, and it's pretty easy to end a lot of turns with just a lone Blue Eyes White Dragon on the field to be able to proc that effect and reload your hand for a future turn. Pretty nice little synergy there. I've had a lot of fun with it. I've thought about making a Blue Eyes deck that is fully going in on kind of like Tenyi and non-effect synergy. I always thought that'd be fun. So, just a little dabble in it to start, and it's very fun. It's a cute little trick, I would call it. And that is it for the spells in this deck. Next up, for trap cards, we are only playing one trap in this deck, and it is a singular copy of Dragon's Bind. This is a fun card that I've enjoyed playing quite a bit in my Armed Dragon builds, and thought I would try it out. Try to give it a home here in this Lord of the Red Blue Eyes deck. It's a continuous trap that says activate this card by targeting a dragon-type monster you control with 2,500 or less attack and defense, and then neither player can special summon monsters with attack less than or equal to the original attack of that monster. When that monster leaves the field, destroy this card. So essentially, this card synergizes with two cards we can play in this deck and access fairly easily: Dragon Spirit of White, and of course, Lord of the Red himself. So both these monsters meet that criteria, 2,500 attack, 2,400 attack. And by having one of these monsters on board and flipping Dragon's Bind, you lock your opponent out of special summoning monsters with 2,400 or less attack. And that cuts off a lot of monsters. And sometimes you'll just cheese a win off of doing that in the right matchup. And definitely has worked out for me quite a few times, which is why I enjoy playing it. Very fun way to do it, if they don't have the spell and trap removal on hand, through spell and trap cards to get rid of it, and if they were relying on an extra deck toolbox to do so, makes it very hard to do. So, if you have Dragon's Bind in your opening hand and can get one of these cards on the field at your end turn, flipping Dragon's Bind with one of these can be quite a cheeky play to cut your opponent off, cut them off at the pass and halt them right in their tracks. Very fun, and for that reason, I'll play it as a one of. Alright, so that is it for our main deck. Next, we are going to be going into our extra deck, but before I start, just a disclaimer, this is not a well-optimized Blue Eyes extra deck. I have not necessarily invested in the tools to create the best extra deck possible for a Blue Eye style deck like this. So if you're looking for a better extra deck, definitely look at a standard Blue Eyes deck profile, see what they're playing, build it a lot more based off of that, because I just necessarily haven't invested in the tools to say to optimize the extra deck. But with that said, I will jump into what I am playing, starting with 2 copies of Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. This is the Blue Eyes Synchro monster, requires a tuner and a non-tuner Blue Eyes monster. So any of your tuners and a Blue Eyes monster can make it. It has the effect that neither player can special summon 2 or more monsters at the same time. Pretty good, little floodgate, doesn't come up all the time, but it certainly does some work in the right matchups. And then, of course, once per turn during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated in the graveyard, you can negate that effect. So, a nice little graveyard disruption tool, pretty nice to have. There's lots of graveyard effects, so that will come in handy. And then, of course, during either player's turn, you contribute this Synchro summoned monster to special summon a light dragon type Synchro monster from your extra deck in defense position, but it is destroyed during the end of the turn. So also a pretty cool effect that we will be using to go into our next monster. 2 copies of Azure Eyes Silver Dragon. This is the other Blue Eyes Synchro monster. Requires a tuner and 1 or more non-tuner normal monsters if you want to synchro summon it the normal way. But when this card is special summoned, dragon type monsters you currently control cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. That's a nice little protection to have, if you want to have a little safety on your board of dragons that you've already established. And honestly, in what is one of my favorite synergies of the game, that includes protecting itself. So this effect on Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon that will destroy it at the end of the turn will actually not apply to Silver Dragon because it'll be protected from that destruction. Very cool little card design interaction that I'm glad they made. Always feels satisfying to do. And then, of course, Azure Eyes Silver Dragon has the effect that once per turn during your standby phase, you can target a normal monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So you can use that to get out a Blue Eyes White Dragon or a Dragon Spirit of White. Either or, whichever one you need, you can get it out. And so nice solid monster, solid recursion effect for your other graveyard monsters. Pretty cool to have. I've definitely considered playing 3 of each of those so I could fit Pot of Extravagance into the deck because those are definitely the ones I would not want to see gone. Next up for extra deck monsters that I actually go into, we are playing good old 38, the Hope Harbinger Dragon, Titanic Galaxy. Pretty sick XZ monster that you can make with 2 level 8s, which, this deck's full level 8s, so that's easy to do. And essentially once per turn when your opponent activates, when anyone activates a spell card, you can negate it. And, being able to negate an opponent's spell, very powerful effect. So for that reason, we like Hope Harbinger. Negating a key spell can do a lot. It also has a secondary effect that you won't use too often, or at least I don't, that when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can detach a material from this card, change the attack target to this card. So, could come in handy, but mostly we're just playing it for the spell negation, and that is enough to make it worthwhile. Next up, we are playing 1 copy of Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragon. This is a Blue Eyes fusion monster that requires Blue Eyes White Dragon and Blue Eyes White Dragon. However, you don't necessarily need to get this out using polymerization. You can also special summon it by sending the above cards you control to the grave. That's not that hard to do, and Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragon is a pretty good card to have access to. It can make 2 attacks on monsters during the battle phase, which is pretty sick, and any monsters it does not destroy by battle, it will then, after the damage step, you can banish it, which is pretty sick. Non-targeting, non-destruction removal, always a good tool to have. So it's very nice to have access to Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragon. And last up for the extra deck monsters that I've actually gone into and found useful in my build. A copy of good old Link Karibo requires a level 1 monster, so any of our level 1 tuners can become a Link Karibo, which is pretty good. It's a way to get them into the grave if I need them to do so. for their effects. And then Linkuriboh is, of course, a pretty useful card. You know, when your opponent's monster declares an attack, you contribute Linkuriboh, make that attack power 0, you know, give you safety from a battle. And then, of course, when Linkuriboh is in the graveyard, you contribute a level 1 monster to special summon it. So, you know, can even get some recursion for Linkuriboh. Pretty cool card to have access to. That's mostly the ones that I actually find myself going into in this deck. The rest of the extra deck is kind of just filler for very fringe cases that can happen. Starting with some filler XZs here, I am playing Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon, Thunder End Dragon, and Heretic Sun Dragon Overlord. Um, you know, Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon, all these cards require 2 level 8 monsters, which is pretty easy to get into. And, you know, Prime Photon Dragon here has 4,000 attack and an effect that can boost its attack even higher. So mostly used to just, you know, be able to battle over any monster. You know, there are key cases where that's what's needed to remove a monster. So we have Prime Photon in here for that. Thunder End Dragon allows us to detach a material to destroy all other monsters on the field. You know, get a fresh board wipe. Maybe we can set up afterward an OTK. It's very possible. And of course, Heretic Sun Dragon Overlord, where we detach a material to tribute any number of monsters from our hand and or field. And if we do, we can pop cards on our opponent's field equal to the number of cards. So a little more flexibility with the ability to destroy spell and trap cards. So definitely glad to have those in case they are needed. Next up, I am playing 1 copy of the classic Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. This is in case I wanted to side or play Fists of the Unrivaled Tenyi, which is the Tenyi counter trap card that says if I have a non-effect monster, I can negate the activation of a monster effect or a spell and trap card. Often a card I have in the side and might want to bring in, and what's important about that card is that if an opponent destroys it and sends it to the graveyard, I can special summon any non-effect monster from my extra deck. So Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon is of course the largest attack power and Blue Eyes, so that gives it a nice synergy. So I'm glad to have a reason to have the original Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon in there. Next up is Blue Eyes Alternative Dragon. This is a fusion between 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons. Your opponent cannot target or destroy this card with card effects. Once per turn, I can target a card my opponent controls and destroy it. And then, of course, if this card was fusion summoned using a monster whose original name is Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon, you can destroy 3 cards instead. So pretty powerful card that's hard to deal with. I play this card a lot in my decks that play Waking the Dragon. You know, if I was playing Waking the Dragon in here, it'd be a great target to go into. But you know, sometimes I can throw a Dragon's Mirror in the build and be able to make this card, and it's very hard to deal with. And sometimes that is just kind of its own win con. So pretty glad to have it. Definitely cool. Next up, playing a First of the Dragons. This is a fusion monster that can be made off of 2 normal monsters. Another target I can make if I play Dragon's Mirror or something like that. And of course, this card cannot be destroyed by battle except by battle with a normal monster, and it's unaffected by the effect of effect monsters. So in a lot of matchups, First of the Dragons is just a card that can be such a pain to deal with. And sometimes maybe your opponent can't. So that can buy you a lot of time to just be sitting on a First of the Dragons. Very cool card. Very glad to have it. Nice tool to have. And next in line, is Yugioh Mathmech Final Sigma. This is a 12-star synchro monster that requires a tuner and a non-tuner. So if I throw a 4-star tuner in here, something like Angel Trumpeteer, or something, something I've been prone to do, I can go into Yugioh Mathmech Final Sigma. And essentially, this card is unaffected by card effects, except Mathmech cards, if I summon it into my extra monster zone. So that's pretty good. 3,000 attack monster, unaffected by card effects, can be pretty hard to deal with. And of course, if this card battles an opponent's monster and does battle damage through that battle with the opponent's monster, that damage can be doubled. So pretty nice to have. Also a great Waking the Dragon target, if I ever wanted to restructure. Get some more trap cards in here, I can do that It would be pretty sweet. Um, so yes, that is it for the extra deck. Remember, definitely not an optimized extra deck. You can, find what the best Blue Eyes stuff is from other Blue Eyes deck profiles. But that's just what I have, and I'm glad to share that. Alright, so that is it for the deck profile here. It's a very fun pick up and play deck for me to have in a casual playground setting. It's very cool to be able to summon Lord of the Red to destroy lots of cards. The interaction with Dragon's Bind uh, is particularly cheesy, and I really like stuff like that. Um, so I've definitely had a lot of fun playing this deck, and in general, Blue Eyes is a very cool deck for me to have just because of the number of different cards it allows me to play for fun. I've played Blue Eyes with other rituals like the Mass Beasts, and of course I've played it with Berserk Dragon, the new Barbaros stuff. Um, Lots of things that you'll probably see more of at a later date. Very much enjoy this deck, and I hope you do too. If you're out there and you play anything fun or wacky with Blue Eyes on a casual duel night, let me know below. I'd be curious to see what other people do with Blue Eyes. I know it is a fan favorite deck, and it's a cool addition to my collection. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Uh, you know, Tell me about your favorite Blue Eyes stuff below, and I'll catch you in the next deck profile. Later, everyone.